I see our guest of honor has arrived, so I'm just going to say a couple of words and then we'll get on to why you're really here. I'm Kim Hufford, president of the Darien Library, and I know you didn't come here to listen to me, so I will just say a few words. It has been a very exciting 2 weeks at the library. It's probably been a very exciting 3 years, but it's really been an exciting few weeks. I hope all of you have a chance to not only be in our lovely new community room, but wandered all the floors and the nooks and crannies, considering 10,000 of you came in the first 2 days. 3,800 on Sunday, and we're only open 4 hours. So again, we've been busy. So I assume a lot of you have had a chance to see the library. But the librarians are thrilled you're here. They're very tired, but they are thrilled that everybody seems to have found a place to come and enjoy our new space. And we're thrilled to have Dierdre Imus here tonight. But I just want to take a couple minutes because I don't think I can ever thank our donors enough who contributed the $24 million to build this gem of a building. It was private funds. We raised it through a capital campaign, and it's really through the charitable donations of 1,600 families in Darien that made this building possible. So many of you have contributed over the years, and really everyone overwhelmed us with their support during our campaign to build this new wonderful building. Of course, now that we've built the building, our funding needs are just as great. We don't probably need to raise another $24 million, but now that we've built the building, year in and year out, we have to raise about $500,000 to fill the building. I don't know, it's a public-private partnership, and the town does not pay for any of the books, any of the computers, any of the online databases, the stuffed animals in the children's room, printers, nothing. That's all paid for with the funds that we raise in our annual campaign. This is not new. It's not just because we moved into the new library that this is funding arrangement has been in place since 1967. The town certainly does their part by supporting our library staff, but everything in the library is paid through the funds we raise in our annual campaign. So again, for those of you who've donated to this effort, I can't thank you enough. For those of you who haven't, there's still a great need, and there's still time this year and every year. I hope you really enjoy and use the new library. I hope you enjoyed the program today, and I hope you'll support the library. So with that, I'm going to turn to Barbara Thomas to introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you all for coming tonight. As Kim said, it's the donations from the Friends of the Darien Library that provide all the materials in the library, but also make it possible for us to have programs such as this. So thank you very much. And thank you for coming tonight. Welcome to the new Darien Library and to our grand opening author series. Tonight's program is a perfect fit. It gives us the opportunity to say again that our library is the first LEED Gold library in New England. LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. And we get to introduce a true pioneer, an advocate for environmental and personal responsibility. She is the founder and president of the Dierdre Imus Environmental Center for Pediatric Oncology, part of Hackensack University Medical Center. She is also co-founder with her husband Don Imus of the Imus Cattle Ranch for Kids with Cancer. Let me quote from a recent blog at the Huffington Post. Quote, "When the FDA grants approval on products marketed to consumers, the vast majority of Americans feel comfortable that the agency has performed its due diligence and the risk of injury or harm is non-existent. Don't we all want to believe that? We mustn't, though." The author of that quote and the enlightening piece that followed is our speaker here tonight. A respected voice on environmental issues, her Green This series of books have been national bestsellers. Her passion shows and it motivates us. It's contagious. Her advice is practical and doable. Greening Your Cleaning and Growing Up Green have tackled the subjects of alternative cleaning products and baby and child care. Now the author gets really personal. In her newest book, The Essential Green You, Easy Ways to Detox Your Diet, Your Body, and Your Life, She discusses food, clothes, cosmetics, toiletries, and hair products. It is with much thanks and admiration that we greet tonight's speaker. Please join me in welcoming Dierdre Imus.
Thank you, Barbara. And thank you, Darien Public Library, for inviting me here. And congratulations to all of you that probably live here in Darien. You can take advantage of this beautiful building. I think it's only probably the second or third green building I've actually been in to be able to talk about living green that hasn't been my own building or hospital that I'm with. So thank you again, too, because this is definitely the future. So tonight, I'm here, of course, to talk about my books. I want to open it to questions, definitely, because I think by asking a lot of questions, you'll have specific needs that you want to address. So I will do that. But first, I just want to tell you a little about what the center's been doing, how I started, really, and what green really means. Green, first of all, the word, and now I feel like it's probably overused and it's abused. But green really does just mean the least level of toxicity in everything, in the way we live, or non-toxic where possible, when that's a reality. So with that, the driving force on why I've been so passionate about this, it comes from working with children. Unfortunately not healthy children, but sick children. And going back well over 15 years ago, when I started working with children with cancer and sickle cell anemia, and also parents that have lost a child to sudden infant death syndrome, it was through fundraising efforts and working with my husband and meeting literally hundreds of families. And I started to wonder why, especially with kids with cancer, why are children getting cancer? And as I started asking questions, I realized that there are many chronic illnesses with our children that are in epidemic proportions now, especially this generation of children. Children that are being born now and that are right now 18, 19, 20 years old. The question is what has happened really over the last 25 to 30 years with our health, because it really has decayed. And what I want to do is lay out this, what I call the state of our children's health, because I think it's a good place to start, and from there, why we're doing everything we're doing. And the state of our children's health is really, unfortunately, a bunch of sad statistics. Asthma is still the leading cause of absenteeism in schools. It's approximately 1 out of 14 children now diagnosed with asthma across the country. Of course, in many cases, it's a life-threatening. It can be a life-threatening illness. Allergies have now become epidemic. I'm sure many of you're shaking your heads. Even in schools, there's now peanut-free schools, peanut-free classrooms, even dairy, soy-free, casein-free, gluten-free, lists of life-threatening allergies. I know just in my son, who's 10 years old, he's in 5th grade, and he goes to a school in New York City, and his class is a good study because he's got 24 students in the class, and 4 of them have chronic asthma and carry inhalers, and 3 of them have EpiPens. And then there's other allergies that aren't as life-threatening that the children have in his classroom, other learning impairments. 1 out of 6 children are diagnosed with a learning impairment, such as ADD, ADHD, bipolar, even dyslexia, and other learning differences that we're discovering really now, even, that people are trying to come up with an actual name for that learning impairment. So that's epidemic now, 1 out of 6 children. in this country. 1 out of 400 to 500 children diagnosed with diabetes. Also, 1 out of 400 to 500 children are diagnosed with sickle cell anemia. 1 out of 6 children are considered overweight or obese. Obese really isn't a term that's used in childhood, but clinically, many of these children, 1 out of 6 of them, are obese. 1 out of 8 babies are born premature, and with premature births, a lot of problems happen, neurodevelopmental problems, breathing problems, etc., come with a lot of premature births. And also the question is, why are there so many now premature births? So you'll look at this, and we have cancer. Cancer is still the leading cause of death by disease in children and adults. We've been successful at having a child or an adult live longer with cancer, but we haven't been able to prevent or identify root cause. So we see a steady 1% increase across the board in most cancers with children and adults. And the United States has the highest statistics with children and adults with cancer. It's approximately 1 out of 3 adults in the United States will get some form of cancer in their lifetime. Well, that's like getting a cavity. I mean, those were always the statistics with cavities. That's how common cancer has become in this country. And now we see globally what's happening also with cancer. Those numbers, many of those numbers are as high as our numbers now, especially in industrialized nations such as ourselves. Autism, 1 out of 150 is the national statistic with autism. But, for example, the state of New Jersey, which has the highest documented prevalence rate, it's 1 out of 90 or 1 out of 92, and it's 1 out of 60 boys. That's pretty unbelievable. Cancer, to break down the statistics even with children, 1 out of 300 children now are being diagnosed with cancer. And it's something like 1 out of 300 boys and 1 out of 333 girls. So I would say that's a pretty high statistic, unfortunately, with children's cancers. There's been a steady increase, about a 27% increase in certain cancers with children, like brain tumors and leukemias. ALL happens to be one of the most common cancers, leukemias with children. And we see that steady increase over the last 25 to 30 years, that 27% increase. So this is the state of our children's health. So the question is, why? Why are our children so sick? So knowing this, what we first, my husband and I have committed ourselves to, because you can't do everything and you can't really help everyone. We started with children with cancer and sickle cell anemia. And we had been working and raising money for years. And in 1998, we decided or thought of building a ranch for kids with cancer. And it came out of us knowing hundreds of parents. And the reason why we built a working cattle ranch for kids with cancer was that we saw that there was like a common theme with children that had been diagnosed and going through illness. And that was that many of them lost their self-esteem, their self-confidence, their self-worth. They've lost a real sense of purpose even in life, many of them, where they no longer participated in sports in school, or were able to participate in organizations, missed a lot of school, of course, kind of dropped out of life. And we found that with that common thread, that there was nowhere for these children to go to regain that sense of confidence or self-esteem or sense of purpose. And from our experience, now with thousands and thousands of children we've worked with, They just want to be treated like normal kids. A child that's sick or has something wrong with them, they do not want to be patronized. They don't want to have you feel sorry for them. They want you truly to treat them just like any healthy, capable kid. And so what my husband and I thought is, and he was raised on a cattle ranch, so it's not like a random thought process, but it was spontaneous. And he thought, the work ethic that he grew up with, having to get up and feed the animals and take care of something other than yourself first, always gave that sense of confidence and self-esteem, that work ethic. That it's really a strong cowboy work ethic. And so we put two and two together and said, that's what we need to do. We need to build this ranch for these kids and have them come to the ranch and instill this work ethic. And that's what we did. So in 1998, we founded 4,000 acres in New Mexico. And it was pretty virgin property. I mean, there was nothing, no buildings, nothing, no roads, no fences. So my husband mostly really raised all the money so we could build this ranch. And we did it in a matter of days, over $40 million, to build this really state-of-the-art, world-class facility. And the philosophy, it's a dual philosophy. The philosophy is, by instilling a strong work ethic, these children start to gain their self-confidence, sense of purpose, and self-worth back. And so it's not a camp, and it's quite different because literally it serves a whole different purpose. Our focus isn't for them to have fun and recreation, all that. Of course, they end up loving it and want to stay and ask to come back. But that's not the focus. The focus really is teaching them to be little cowboys and cowgirls and putting them to work. And it's really unbelievable because we really just provide the environment and they discover that in themselves. That's what they discover. So with this philosophy, the other was, to me, common sense. To build this environment, we want to build it green. So that's what we did. We have over 17 buildings on the property. The whole philosophy is the kids live in the big hacienda with us. Kind of like, I don't know if you guys remember Bonanza TV show. I know it sounds a little corny, but it was that idea that, you're out in the West, on the ranch, living, in this cool hacienda. And so that's what we built. And we act as their surrogate parents. And we take 10 children at a time, and they live in the big house with us. And they travel with 2 child life specialists, a doctor, and a nurse. And they're with us and a couple of cowboys. I mean, we move out there all summer and run the program and take care of the children as if all of a sudden we have 10 new children every 10 days, all summer long. And we have a spring session. The children are 11 to 17 years old. So we're on their school schedule. Anyway, with that, everything from the cleaning products to the building materials, paints, even rugs we were able to find where we had rugs made in their bedrooms that were dyed from vegetable dyes. Their beds were made with non-toxic sustainable woods and non-toxic paint finishes. All the food that we serve is 100% organic, vegetarian, whole food. There's absolutely no junk food at all. There's no microwave. We have a garden and a greenhouse that now, because it takes a while, for the last 4 years, we've been able to cultivate about 80 to 85% of all the food that the children eat, except for things like breads and a lot of the grains and things like that. But all the fruits, most of the fruits even, except for citrus fruits, pretty much all the vegetables, a lot of the seeds, the herbs. So that's a big part of the activity and the work that they go down to the greenhouse and the garden every day. And we teach them about gardening. They pick a lot of the vegetables. They're very active with the menu even, so that they learn about food. And it's amazing. These kids are pretty much all teenagers. They don't know where food comes from. And I don't care where these kids have grown up. We have children from all over the country, and we mix them. So there's kids like from Alaska with kids from New Jersey, kids from New York or Connecticut with kids from Missouri or Oregon. So they get that exchange. We've even taken groups of kids from Italy, and they don't know how food grows. They actually don't know. They can't believe it when they go in and pick beets and pull them right out of the dirt, and carrots, and cut bok choy and kale and collard greens, and broccoli and Brussels sprouts. And through that experience, it starts to connect them. And there's like a renewed respect for themselves even, and the environment. They start to make all these connections. And then they do their laundry, and they see the laundry detergent, and it's not familiar. What is this? And it says non-toxic, and everything's green, and they ask questions. And by example, they learn, because we're not preaching and teaching in that way with them. We just provide this environment, and even when they have a lot of horse work to do. And of course the whole goal is they learn to ride, saddle, groom, halter their own horse, and there's a rodeo that they actually compete in. And through this, even with the shampoos and the fly sprays, everything's non-toxic. So they ask questions, and because they notice, usually like a sunscreen or a fly spray or mosquito spray, they'll say, at home, I have asthma or I have an allergy, and it'll always affect them, the smell even. And so they're saying, well, this doesn't make me break out. What's this product? How can my mom find out about it? So you see, we've tried to really address all those issues. And the reason why this is so important is all of those are environmental exposures that children are exposed to every day. And so we see that in their schools. Kids spend 80% of their day in school. They're exposed to the toxic cleaning products. They're exposed to the toxic building materials, the pest control, which is usually pesticides that are sprayed, sometimes fumigated all summer while they're out of school for roaches and ants, etc. So they're breathing and absorbing all of these toxins on a daily basis. And then, of course, their diets are shot. I mean, kids today are eating microwave food, fast food. Kids, they'll describe, I thought, food, I see, their food comes like in a little box. I mean, so a lot of the food that our children are eating is depleted of all nutrients and really doesn't even have the proper minerals anymore in the food. So as we started to take these children, I wondered, they're all being treated in hospitals. Are hospitals places of healing? And I focused on their physical environment, because again, environmentally, those are things I believe we can control. I focus on what we can control. The stuff we can't, I choose not to focus, because there's so much we can control. So the physical environment of hospitals, and I had a relationship with Hackensack University Medical Center, because we got some of our first kids and continue to from that hospital. And I went to the president, and I had all this big binder I put together of all the cleaning agents that are used in hospitals. I mean, I did research in hospitals and at home. And I listed them along with all the chemicals that are found commonly in all these cleaners and what their potential hazards are. In pretty much every cleaning product, the chemicals that they contained all fell under several categories. They were carcinogenic, meaning cancer-causing. They were neurotoxicants, meaning they impair the neurological and the nervous system. They were hormone disruptors, endocrine disruptors, respiratory ailments, and triggered other manifestations with rashes and allergies and just overall dizziness, not feeling well, headaches, depression even, and then specifically working with cleaning products. So I said to him, what if I could take all the cleaning products out of the hospital and replace them with non-toxic, environmentally friendly ones, and they wouldn't cost you any more money? And he said, well, within 5 minutes, John Ferguson, the president of the hospital, stopped me and he said, this just makes too much sense. I wonder why hospitals aren't already doing that. Because you're right, even with patient care, anyone that's in a hospital, there's something wrong. Usually there's compromised immune system problems already. You're vulnerable, and they clean more in hospitals than they do in any other type of building. 24/7. You'll be in there, no matter if you're on a respirator, oxygen, or whatever your problem is, they're going in there cleaning with really harsh chemicals that do affect your breathing. So he said, do it. So in the spring of 2001, we successfully implemented what I named the Greening the Cleaning program on the entire campus. And to give you a scope of that, it's over 9,000 employees, the fourth largest hospital in the country. It's a designated children's hospital of New Jersey. And we successfully revamped the entire campus to use non-toxic. So the key was infectious disease, because and also that's also why I wanted to start with a hospital, because if you could prove at a hospital that these products work and you could save money and they pass those efficacy tests of infectious disease in a hospital setting, which has much higher standards than a school or a home or anywhere else or a business, then if this was successful, then everyone should be doing this, right? I thought that made sense. So when we did it successfully, we, to their surprise, the infectious disease and Department of Asthma and Immunology said that the products worked as well, and in many cases the products worked better, and they were so surprised and happy about that. Because as soon as they heard green and non-toxic, the theory is, oh, it can't work as well. It can't kill the germs as well. So we successfully proved that, as well as we yield the hospital about a 15% cost savings. So it took off, the program, and I was asked to form the Environmental Center, so I did in 2001. And so now this is one of our most important programs, the Greening the Cleaning, where we've implemented in hundreds of hospitals and schools and child care facilities, daycare, boys and girls clubs, even an airport, any public facility. So we offer this program through the Environmental Center, and I consider it like an educational program, because our mission for the Dierdre Imus Environmental Center for Pediatric Oncology is to identify, control, and ultimately prevent environmental factors that may cause adult cancer, and especially pediatric cancer and all other health problems with our children. So it just seems like an obvious, common place to start with cleaning products. So from there, it became so popular that mothers were calling, saying, how can we do this in our home? Is this available for the home? So we started a retail line of Greening the Cleaning as well. With that, we also have a Building Green program, and we built the first green hospital in the country of its scale and size. It's a 300,000 square foot, 5-floor building, women's and children's. It's now 4 years old, right, Bonnie? This year will be 4 years it's been open. And the center's responsibility, Building Green, was making sure that the materials that were picked were truly the least level of toxicity. And then working, obviously, with the hospital, the contractors, working directly with the designer and the architect. And if any of you ever get a chance to come over, we give tours, because we consult, and we have other universities and hospitals, schools come over to take tours to learn, because it's absolutely beautiful. As you can see here at the library, you don't have to compromise the aesthetic value of your home or a hospital or a library by going green. And the hospital really shows that, because it's more like a hotel feeling. We have people come in and it's like you feel like you want to check in, because aesthetically it's that beautiful. We tried to consider everything, the physical attributes as well as the organic menu, lots of organic choices, whole foods, even someone who doesn't want dairy milk, soy milk, lots of different raw nuts, whole grain breads, which is, you would think we already all know that, but in hospitals, most of you probably know, they have the worst food anyway, and they still serve white bread. It's really, there's so many disconnects, because here you're in the hospital, you really need food that's going to nourish, and the food really doesn't, it only has the potential to, frankly, make you sicker, just like everything else. And then this indoor cocktail, which you're not breathing here at all in this green building, but a building that hasn't been built this way, we're all breathing a chemical cocktail. And the EPA and the World Health Organization, their statistics, there's like approximately 100,000 chemicals that have been released in our environment. And there's approximately 1,000 to 1,200 new chemicals introduced into our environment that are approved every year. And fewer than 2% of them have been tested for their safety. And of the ones we do know, it's unbelievable because they're allowed to be put in product in our food chain through agricultural practices, in our water, and in everyday products like cosmetics and personal care products, deodorants, lotions, clothing, the way clothing is made and processed, knowing that they're known carcinogens and neurotoxins and hormone and endocrine disruptors and all of these things. So it's not frivolous to talk about any of these issues, whether you're talking about global warming, which is the bigger picture, or building green, or green cosmetics, or where do you find a healthy deodorant that actually works. You know, I mean, none of this stuff is frivolous because there's so many of these chemicals that we're ingesting, absorbing, breathing, drinking, and eating on a daily basis. And a good example of what we call the toxic body burden that we've built, the Environmental Working Group did a study a few years ago. And they took cord blood from infants. They did a sampling. They call it 10 Americans. They did 10 samplings. Random. They bought it through the American Red Cross. So it was from all parts of the country. And they tested that cord blood to see what's in it. What chemicals will we find? 287 chemicals. Now that was all that they got funding for. They could have gone to see if there were more chemicals to test, but they tested and found 287 chemicals in babies' cord blood. Of the 287 chemicals they found, they categorized all of them to see, you know, how harmful are they, or are they listed as any carcinogen? They all fell under all of them, carcinogen, neurotoxin, hormone disruptor, endocrine disruptor, neurotoxicant. So that's pretty strong evidence of the chemical body burden that we're all carrying. So from that, you know, a lot of it started in the 1930s through the Industrial Revolution when a lot of these chemicals were made, synthetic chemicals were made dirt cheap. And they were put in cleaning products to makeup to soap, everything. So there's been an accumulation from generation to generation of absorbing and taking on these chemicals. So the big question is, people will ask, we see all these children now, like I just cited with these epidemics, these numbers so high, these prevalence rates of chronic illnesses so high, and we see it with adults too, a lot of these. Why didn't we see this 20 or 30 years ago? And there's a couple of crucial things that have happened. And one of them is the food chain. The food chain has been really destroyed, where children are being born with mineral depletion and malnutrition. And so you see through those mineral deficiencies and malnutrition, a lot of these chronic illnesses come out or manifest. But with that, they've already they're past the toxic tipping point because it's been passed on from mother, from grandmother. A lot of these bioaccumulative even chemicals. And of course, you have genetics and environment that meet. They work together. So we see a lot of genetic mutations now. We see a lot of chromosomal damage, a lot of DNA damage. In fact, the main reason for infant death now is birth defects, and a lot of that has been in the womb from chromosomal or damage that's been done, but nobody can pinpoint what was it from, some exposure during that time, or was it already some genetic mutation that had happened, or where a doctor would then say it's a genetic carrier of something that you weren't aware of. So there's a lot of these questions that we can't answer right now. So it really makes common sense knowing that we're absorbing all these chemicals to try to prevent. So that's what we focus on. Where you can prevent, we do. So that's what my books talk about. Greening the Cleaning, my first book, all about cleaning products. I tried to answer every question possible and guide you in an easy way to be at home, make it clear what are those cleaning products you should be using, what you should avoid, and also how you should be cleaning. Then my second book, Growing Up Green, Baby and Child Care. Essentially how to raise your baby in the healthiest way possible with such a toxic world we live in now. So they're positive. I mean, again, with all this probably negative information, a lot of people receive it negatively, especially if it's new information. They get overwhelmed and it stresses people out. And I ask that you don't do that, because all that does is paralyze you with the information. It never gets you where you're proactive and in charge of your life. And frankly, I think everyone at this stage of the game has to suck it up, you know? I mean, we've heard green now for quite a while, and yet I still get, how do you do it? I don't know, it's too hard. And no. I mean, that's why I'm doing the books too, to try. I mean, this is a learning curve for all of us to educate, and really it's a lifestyle thing where we have to start adapting healthier practices and phasing out old ways of doing and old thinking to new ways. For example, like I remember in college, it was the first time I had to go, I was living on my own, had to do all my own shopping, buying, my laundry detergent, etc. And so I was like I would just go down the aisles. Oh, what did my mother buy? Oh yeah, that's right, she bought that brand, and she bought that. So I was just buying what I remember her buying, never thinking, well, gee, maybe is this healthy? Is there something better? And of course I would buy according to price too, which is a way most of us shop as well. So that's why it's important with a lot of these healthier choices that it's affordable, that it's cost competitive. And that's another thing I explore in the book, where we are with food. Some foods are cost competitive, where it's realistic for most people to go all organic. It depends on where you live, what your access is to certain foods and certain stores. Same with personal care. And that leads me to the third book, The Essential Green You, which is really for the adult. Growing Up Green was for your children. And it really goes through all of the cosmetics and beauty care, men and women, mostly for women. And even I think in homes, a woman is going to take charge of that information anyway, a lot of times, just from experience. And also, what was it, the New York Times did last year, and another publication for consumers. Consumers Report had it at one point too. Women really have the control in the home, or that caregiver, whoever that is in the home, of over 90% of everything that comes into that home. Whether they decide how they live, and they said that the man really decides the TVs or the technological stuff in the cars. I'm not being sexist here. I'm just saying that is what they cited in Consumers Report, even on the trends of how we buy in this country. So given that, we have a lot of power, all of us, men and women, to make those choices, because by making those healthier choices, you create a demand. That's what we started to do with the food movement, local, organic, even some whole food has caught on. The food has definitely been ahead of the other areas in our lives. And cosmetics are coming around now too. Clothing has a long way to go. We're in the very infantile stages of really having clothing made healthy. We're a country of jeans and t-shirts and cotton. It's all cotton, right? Cotton's the most heavily sprayed crop. And it takes about 1/3 of a pound of pesticides for a cotton t-shirt, and 1/4 pound of pesticides for blue jeans. So it gives you a good example of how many chemicals go into things that I think you wouldn't normally think about, right? And that accumulative effect, because you take those pair of jeans home that aren't organic cotton and you put them in the wash, and what happens? A lot of that pesticide residue pollutes our water systems. It basically poisons the water systems. Same with spraying pesticides on all of our fruits and vegetables and crops. If you're a meat eater, the way meat is raised, and I raise all these issues in the book and try to guide as much as possible toward, okay, if I'm going to eat beef, what's the healthiest way to eat beef? So there's a lot of those examples, and I'm as deliberate as telling you with personal care products what products to avoid. Now, it's not an exhausted list, and even yesterday I learned about another great non-toxic skincare line, and so obviously that's not in the book, but again, it's examples of leading you in a way to start choosing and looking out for those different brands that are like a lot of the brands that I mentioned in the book, that truly are trying to have the right integrity with not using petroleum, mineral oil, parabens, phthalates, and I explain all this again in the book, why it's important to know what those are and to stay away from products that contain those chemicals, phthalates and parabens. Parabens are in a lot of women's, everything from skin creams to all of our makeup. There's even detected levels of mercury and lead in makeup. Hair coloring is another big issue. Some of these, there's a definite healthy option. For some, it's more of a dilemma, like hair coloring, unfortunately. Like I'm in a fight with my colorist, because I color my hair, of course, and I get highlights, and he's like, oh, it's great because there's no pneumonia. But then there's like a whole list of other chemicals that are used in hair coloring, all different sorts of hair coloring for all of us. So some things aren't as easy as others right now, unfortunately. So I'd like to open it to questions, actually, right now, if we could. Is that all right? Because then I think to get you guys involved, ask some questions so I know what your interests are, where you guys are coming from. Yes?
I have a question about sunscreens. I have small kids,
Uh-huh.
and a lot of the sunscreens I've tried have been very gooey and sticky with the zinc oxide. What do you recommend? What have you found?
Do you use a sunscreen that's just zinc oxide?
No.
Oh, because the ones that have the zinc oxide are the healthier ones too, like the Aubrey's Organic, or I've got like 3 or 4 listed for children too in there. Trying to think, Avalon is another one.
Dr. Hauschka
But
is a good one.
I'm sorry?
Dr. Hauschka?
Dr. Hauschka, yeah.
He's going to spray this year. Which is
Right.
great for kids.
And actually,
Very good.
thank you, Dr. Hauschka. And I mentioned Hauschka because I love the whole skincare and the makeup line. And they've been around for a long time. They've improved it because several years of, that was one of them that was goopy, and I didn't recommend it under my sunscreens
Last year, they really improved it.
because it gives you that kabuki face too. I mean, it did. It just never went in. Like, I used to call my son Little Kabuki Boy. He put the sunscreen on, and it's like it just never went into the skin and absorbed and went away. He had this like it was crazy. But they've improved again. So I mentioned I named those lines in the book that we provide all the non-toxic sunscreens for the children all summer at the ranch. I mean, in Mexico, we're putting it on constantly. Where the sun is so hot, we're closer to the sun there. We're in a high altitude, so it's much more intense there. So we're really vigilant about making the kids put sunscreen on. And by the way, it is for all types of skin, no matter how light or how dark, with sunscreens. For many years, that wasn't the case. We were told by doctors, just for the pinkish, reddish skin tone, and that's not true. And we're seeing that with diagnosis of skin cancers now. Children as young as 13 and 14-year-olds being diagnosed with skin cancer. We have children at the ranch that have been 13, 14, 15 years old with skin cancer already. So there's a balance with that too. Because then there's a lot of studies that come out, like we went and like just covered ourselves in sunscreen because of the skin cancer, and then we weren't letting the vitamin D absorb into our bodies, into the cellular level and metabolizing that, and that wasn't good. So there's a balance with using anything. Another question? Yes?
I was just wondering what you think about soy. I mean, I know you recommend tofu and soy milk, and I've read a lot of things about soy attacking your thyroid and soy also having too much estrogen for women and causing breast cancer. I was just wondering your thoughts on that, because I know a lot of the vegans, eat a lot of that.
It's a great question. And it's confusing. You're right. Soy, well, first of all, you can get your levels tested, your hormone levels, and some people also are allergic to soy. But the soy that has been talked about is the isoflavones. That is usually when women take a supplement. And also women were taking it premenopause and menopausal women. They even sell like at health food stores. You can get, they'll call it like a natural progesterone cream or estrogen cream, or there's testosterone. Those are the 3 hormones that women need to balance, and they need to be balanced. So those are the specific actual soy supplements that those studies had resulted in. Could possibly, it depends on your genetic susceptibility and other things, whether you're susceptible, but that's what they're talking about. They're not talking about tofu. Also, soy, just like anything else, like dairy, there's certain soys that aren't healthy to eat. And those are the ones I focus on that you should eat if you're going to eat that as a source of protein, is tofu, organic, only organic when you eat soy too. And the fermented soys like miso and tempeh. And tempeh, like we make our veggie burgers, we'll use the tempeh. It's delicious. And there's lots of ways to use tempeh. And miso. I mean, miso's been around for years. Macrobiotics use it. The Japanese, it's a staple in their diet. In fact, Asian women and Japanese women, they've done studies, and they start from early on, childhood, eating every day, like miso soup for breakfast with tofu chunks inside it, and tempeh, limited amount of soy yogurt, organic soy yogurts. And for some women, it depends on your susceptibility, but you could drink up to a cup of soy milk, again, organic also. But that's where it ends. Not all this other junk, soy this and soy that with the like soy cereals, and it's just junk, like all this other stuff. And dairy also, but the Dairy Council also had a big part in, because a lot of women were switching or stopped eating a lot of dairy. And dairy, if you choose to eat dairy, you really should stick to, first of all, organic. There are so many hormones, and there's antibiotics that they find, and there's levels of dioxin, and even PCBs, and other chemicals. It comes from an animal. And how healthy is that animal? So if you choose to eat dairy, the healthiest is raw, organic, grass-fed, artisan cheese. Saying that, it's not totally easy to find. There are small batches that are usually made. I know Whole Foods has a couple. Is there a Whole Foods around here? There probably is, right? You guys probably have access to everything here. So you guys are lucky that way. So you could probably find a few farms that they buy from and it'll say raw, organic, and it'll even say no hormones, no added. Grass-fed and the artisan, because they're smaller batches that are made. The cows are much more humanely treated. I mean, I've even bought from a farm that they're brown Swiss cows, and they're grazing all year round, 12 months out of the year. They live outside. They never come in. Like some of even the organic dairy, they started because it became so competitive. where Walmart started buying up some organic to sell. They compromised somewhat because they would bring those cows in and hook them up to those metal lactators. So they were inside 8 months out of the year. Well, when you are making a cow lactate, how do you think they're getting the milk? Hormones. So the cow is forced to produce more hormones. And then if they're not producing enough, then they give them more hormones. And then what are they feeding them? Feeding them high soy. Usually they're eating soy grain and other junk. So, you should be mindful of that. Again, you've got to protect your health because so much of dairy even has been linked to high incidences of breast cancer as well. And other cancers, by the way. Colon cancer, colorectal cancer. So dairy is definitely not at the top of my list for healthy foods. No way. And if you eat what I just said, raw, organic, grass-fed. And if you can, find an artisan company that does artisan cheeses. And don't eat it every day either. There's the balance here. Did I answer enough? And I have more on that in the book, too, with breast cancer, too, in women. And I reference books to explore that fully. Yes?
I'm just getting off the same question with children and regarding milk. I know you don't really recommend milk, but if you can try to, use alternate rice milk, soy milk.
Or if you want to stick to dairy again, make it organic dairy milk.
Would you recommend, low-fat milk? There's a controversy too on low-fat, 1%, 2%, homogenized.
Now, are you saying that for a baby because they need the fat too?
Children. So
Just for children?
Just if because I do a little bit of everything. Because I'm not sure who to believe.
So then your child doesn't have an allergy to rice or soy either, or dairy?
One of my kids likes soy milk, the other one doesn't, so I do rice milk, but when I bake, I put in rice milk or soy milk. I've heard that soy milk can also cause attentional issues, so I'm like, back to the regular milk.
Well, if there's attention issues, that means there's an allergy. So much of attention deficit even, ADD, ADHD, is triggered by a lot of these underlying allergies that aren't detected or aren't diagnosed. More obvious, although they're just discovering that, sodas, sugary foods. I'm sure you might have heard the news recently. I go off on mercury, the whole vaccine issue, but mercury is in so many things. Cosmetics, vaccines, fish is a huge deal. There's no fish that doesn't have mercury in it. So we could all think, here's the safe fish to eat, I'm going to be healthy. Unfortunately, that's not the case in this environment anymore. There's no water where our fish are, not being exposed to mercury anymore and absorbing that in their fat. There's some fish, because of their higher fat content, absorb more mercury, and that's why I do a whole thing in my book on fish that you should really, because if you're going to choose to eat fish, people keep, they hear the information, they still go get sushi. But you can then prioritize and stay away from the fish that have the highest amounts of mercury. But going back to your milk question,
just doing regular milk, setting aside everything else.
But organic, you must do then.
But would you?
Well, these are the facts. If you do whole milk, you're going to get obviously more fat. But with the whole milk, because that's where the fat is, you're going to have higher levels of dioxins. And dioxins are cancerous, are carcinogens. That's it. What?
Even organic?
Organic will have still dioxins, yes, levels of dioxins. If it's skim organic, it'll be less, because it's less fat. Because that's where the fat in everything is where it holds a lot of these chemicals, these toxins. So based on that, you can make that choice also. Vitamin D fortified, when you buy the organic dairy, and also the soy, because not all soys will say vitamin D fortified or enriched with vitamins. That's important also. And also there'll be lower sugar usually, less sugar. Some of the soy milks too, you can get them with only 4 grams of sugar. Whereas something like whole milk, a lot of them can have 12 grams per glass. People never think of milk with sugar in it, but some of it has a lot of sugar. Other questions? Yes.
Can you talk about
hormone disruptors, specifically phthalates and BPA, and the products you find them in? Because I think it's important that people understand that.
BPAs are in dental sealants and baby bottles mostly, we've probably heard. It's a chemical pliable for plastics. That's what it does. It makes plastics pliable. So I also do put in my Growing Up Green book the different plastics. And there's a whole section on baby bottles. The gold standard of baby bottles is use glass bottles. Glass bottles. They're environmentally friendly. You never have to throw them out. You can pass them on to your sister, friend, whoever's having a baby next that you know. Obviously, you just throw out the nipples and get new nipples. Silicone nipples are the healthiest right now, the food-grade silicone nipples. And when you sterilize them, they also don't break down, because there's been evidence also with the BPAs in those plastic baby bottles of breaking down the more you sterilize, and you have to sterilize the baby bottles, it's a hormone disruptor, ultimately. And what that means is that can trigger early puberty. It also can change behaviors early with that. Ultimately, it's been linked to many cancers. Again, breast cancer, prostate cancer. Prostate and breast, a lot of the issues I'm talking about are linked. Men will get the prostate cancer, women will get the breast cancer with a lot of these hormone-altering chemicals, or hormone mimickers, they also call it. That's a word you'll hear a lot, hormone mimicker. And your body's responding to this chemical that mimics a hormone. So it thinks it's receiving. And so this is what's happening with our bodies. With men, you see now prostate cancer, with women, breast cancer. The dental sealants is another issue, because this generation of kids, the dentist right away. I remember when Wyatt was 6, they were always saying, okay, now we're going to put the dental sealants on. And I actually brought the information in about the chemical, and she said, well, under the Dental Association, they still said the words out on that. And it's the same thing, no proof of anything, so therefore we're going to go with it. Well, I chose not to do them. I never had them. So it's just another thing for parents to know. Obviously, ultimately, as a parent, you have to make that choice. So the best thing to do is gather all the information, and if you still want to put the dental sealants in, then that's your choice. Other questions?
What is a dental sealant?
They put them in now like at 6 years old. They're like a clear, the plastic, the BPA, with other chemicals, over the back teeth usually. They'll do the whole, to prevent cavities, they say. So it seals it up. So, because kids now too, they say, you go to the dentist and they're pushing the dental sealants because kids have so many cavities now. That's another issue. Kids 6, 7, 8 years old can have 4 or 5 cavities or more already. So this is a new practice with, are you guys familiar? Yeah. Right, yeah, you're shaking your heads, yeah, as the dental sealant. I know in New York City, same thing. I mean, all the dentists, they want to put the dental sealants on. And if a mom doesn't have that information, what would make you think there's anything wrong with that? And they have a good story about why your kid should have the dental sealants, right? But if you know this, then you could make that choice. You have that choice. Yes, ma'am.
I was going to ask you, I think, as you said before, there are so many things that you could think about and do that it gets a little overwhelming. Do you have any advice of like the 3 things that you might tell people in this audience if you're just beginning to think about whether it's what you wear or what you eat or what you do in your house? 3 things that would be important to
Yes.
begin.
Great question. Also, I do have a top 10 things to do. It's like toward the back of the book. But top 3 and you could do them like this. It's not going to cost you more money. And frankly, it'll really eliminate so many of those really bad chemicals. Definitely cleaning products. I mean, come on. We've made it easy with the greening, the cleaning. Other companies out there have products. There's no excuse. There's no reason why any of you should be using chlorine bleach or ammonia or all those, frankly, famous brands that we all grew up with. You see in all the commercials, I mean, they're junk. And to clear away, in case you're confused and you're standing in the aisle, like, everything advertises now, like it seems like it's healthy. Bottom line, pick up the jug of whatever it is you're buying, whether it's a window cleaner or all-purpose cleaner or laundry liquid. It should disclose all ingredients. If it doesn't say all ingredients provided here, or we disclose all ingredients, or all ingredients provided here, and then they list the ingredients and you understand them, I wouldn't buy that product. It doesn't make sense. And for years we've all been okay and never questioned it. I mean, we'll all buy makeup, we'll all buy all of our household goods, cleaning product, everything, and there's no ingredients on anything. And it's only because no one has actually enforced a law. So these companies choose to not put it because they don't want to advertise, a list of 30 chemicals in their product. I mean, it would scare people, right? So they'd rather not, and therefore you don't know, and then nobody's scared, and then we're all kind of living blindly then. So look and make sure. Our product says right on it, all of our products, we disclose all ingredients. I list in my Greening the Cleaning book, my Growing Up Green book, and the Essential Green You book, all three, the other green cleaning products also that do that. Second, pest control. How many of you guys use like an exterminator at home for pests, or probably buy like Raid and all those spray products, etc. You can't do that either. Again, those are known carcinogens, and most of them are already known listed neurotoxins. Neurotoxins that again have been linked to in the causes of ADD, ADHD, even bipolar, a lot of these neurodevelopmental problems. They're looking into pesticides with autism also. That would be definitely second. You've got to clean up your act with the household indoor. That indoor air quality, you've got to eliminate. That's a huge exposure if you do both those things. Thirdly, food. We've got to focus on food more. Now, where do you start with food? Well, it's all I'd like to individually go, where are you guys with your food? You know what? Some people, they're microwaving everything. So, you know what? You got to get rid of the microwave. Some people are like, they're eating pretty healthy. Yeah, they get vegetables. They're still eating probably too much meat. They're not getting a lot of organic. So I suggest a couple things. You have to do a food list every week. Now, besides your grocery list, which you probably already do, you should do a menu. I do a menu every week. I sit down. It takes me 5 minutes. I do a menu of the meals I know that our family is going to eat together for the week. It saves you money. It saves you ultimately time. And you start to see, and you could save those menus then, a variety of what you're eating week to week. And maybe those foods that, oh, wow, I didn't realize I haven't eaten any of these cruciferous vegetables for like 5 weeks. You don't realize that until you actually write it down. You think, oh, I've eaten Brussels sprouts and bok choy and kale and collard greens. Well, some people don't even eat those at all. They're not even part of their diet. They can't remember the last time they ate them. So if you start writing that down, you'll start to, and it's fun. Then prioritize. In my book, all three, Growing Up Green and this latest book, I give a list of prioritizing what to buy organic. Unless you're already buying all organic. Most people aren't. It's expensive. Sometimes you don't find it all. Prioritize. Well, your prioritizing comes from what are the most heavily sprayed? What are the most poisonous if I don't buy them organic? So go through that list, and if you eat those foods on that list or want to, make those organic. And that's a dirty dozen list. They call it the top 12. There's peaches on that list, green beans, apples, strawberries, grapes are another. And then I show you the next tier down from that. Medium sprayed. And then the least sprayed, which bananas, avocados are on that list. So you go through those, and those are like aids. They're helping you. And you can bring them with you even in the book or Xerox it. And they're right there all together, those 3 lists. And then I do the same thing with fish. I break down all the kinds of fish you could possibly eat. What would be the most benign if you choose to eat fish with the least amount of mercury. Fish also has not just mercury, unfortunately, but lead and PCBs. which are in high levels, and dioxins. So there's a lot there just in eating a piece of fish. So I, again, prioritize.
Thanks. I just have one follow-up thing to ask you, and then you can pick the next question. I looked at some cleaning products in a supermarket, green cleaning. They seem very expensive. Is that kind of across the board?
No, it shouldn't. Some are. I know ours are cost competitive. I mean, ours sit along next to Windex, and it's the same price. But, and also, I have to say this too because we distinguish ourselves. Our greening the cleaning institutional that we sell through the hospital, through the environmental center, it's all charity. 100% of all those profits when we implement a facility go back into the environmental center for pediatric oncology, for our greening the cleaning program and studies that we're doing now with Children's Health. And the retail line of our GTC, 100% of all those profits go to the Imus Cattle Ranch for kids with cancer. But there are, sometimes they could be more expensive, but there's like 2 or 3 other green lines, and they've been out there for a while, that are definitely cost competitive. Yeah. Oh wait, you had your hand up before, and then I'll get to you.
I have a question about well water, and I assume you have wells at the ranch.
We do.
We have wells, part of Darien is on well water, and we have to dump these bags of, potassium chloride, whatever. Is there anything? How do you treat the water, your well water?
We don't.
In your green.
We get it at the ranch. We are on well water. We have several wells, and since we've started the ranch, it was 10 years this year, and we have it tested. I have it tested every 5 weeks, literally every 5 weeks.
I do mine every 12 weeks, but we have to add. So I was wondering if there was any kind of.
We haven't had to do anything.
Have you run across that in any of your research?
No. As far as what to do with the well water?
Or what kind of product could be added, a safe kind of product?
Oh. Well, it depends on what you find or you need to balance. Sometimes there's soft or hard water.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about too, balancing that? Because we have soft water at the ranch. We haven't done anything about it because I just check for contaminants. As long as there's no contaminants, heavy metals, or any of those chemicals I've been talking about in the water. Obviously, there's no chlorine. Then we don't worry about it. But the best source, because we go into a whole thing on our website at the Environmental Center, we're a huge resource, you guys. If I don't have it in the book, go to dienviro.com, the Environmental Center, and we have research, all the studies, and what you're saying, you can even ask that question, and Bonnie, the managing director from the Environmental Center, is here too, and she'll tell you, we're constantly updating, and we have a whole thing on water. And then filtered water, I go a whole thing in that. Water's an issue right now. I don't think there's an easy solution. Because even with bottled water, like plastic, I know in schools even, they're like, don't have your child bring the plastic water bottle. Okay, so you buy a little container that they carry every day. Well, first of all, I've seen moms, now they're buying aluminum bottles or plastic. That's not good. You want stainless steel. So if you do that. But then my main concern is, okay, so what water are you using all of a sudden? Where's everybody getting their healthy water? I don't know. It's a dilemma. I do go through the different filters for the home in Growing Up Green that you can use, and they're all rated, and there's pros and cons with each one. And a lot of them it's high maintenance. You got to make sure they're clean, at least monthly. Once for the showers too, I talk about, as well as drinking, because that's important too. And then sometimes they have to be retrofitted. Sometimes there's a carbon filter. The healthiest way to filter, if one could afford it, is reverse osmosis. Bottom line. So if you could put a reverse osmosis, and usually it's installed underneath the sink, and then there's a little thing on your sink that you could get your water. And sometimes companies will connect it coming through your faucet, but not always. Sometimes you have to use it on that other, like little faucet that they connect the reverse osmosis system, and then you clean those filters like usually monthly, like every 4 to 5 weeks. But in the book, I go into detail about a lot of the water because it's an issue. I know a lot of people now that are just like now using the tap. Well, then there's a lot of stuff in the tap water, and then are they filtering it? I don't think the healthiest solution is to just use those, the ones like the Brita, I rate that one too. It uses the carbon, so it takes out some of the impurities, but not a lot. And remember, in our water systems, we've got everything from arsenic to levels, detected levels of mercury, and parts per billion is what the EPA in your state will look for. But those parts per billion sometimes are too high. I mean, the bottom line is, to me, and I've learned this from a lot of scientists, there's no safe level of drinking or ingesting lead or any heavy metal, mercury, and yet there's a parts per billion allowed in water. So there's a lot to consider. So I explore that in the book, but there's no definitive answer, and it depends on many things. And you had a question back there. Excuse me? Mattresses?
I have oil heating and it's mostly natural.
Well, what is it? It says, I don't know what natural means, though.
They don't use the chemicals.
So what is it made out of? What's the fiber?
It has wool and it has organic.
Cotton, maybe? I don't know. Well, I have a whole mattress section. I do. Growing Up Green and Greening the Cleaning. Greening your home. I have a whole section on the mattress, your bedding, your bedroom. And if you have to start with something, I'd start with your children. Because probably already have your mattress, whatever it is. We should change our mattresses out every 10 years. Sometimes you can wait a little longer if you do have a mattress that's made with organic cotton and wool, and even they make them out of horsehair. I have a list in the Greening the Cleaning book and Growing Up Green, and right now, actually, there's a lot of sources for crib mattresses and toddlers and babies. And that's a great place to start in the bedroom, besides paints and any kind of renovation in a child's bedroom. You have to do green paints even. You can't use those toxic paints. There's way too many chemicals and volatile organic compounds that, again, have been proven to impair the neurological development of a child. Same with toys. I have a whole section on toys going into detail and Growing Up Green as well. But mattresses, there's 10 different major companies, and I give you the websites. And then the baby stuff, actually, you can see the sources because I've shown you the ones that are actually I know are good, and even the one I used with our child and have recommended to others. And even I bet you if you Google now, I mean, I've done that a lot more now. A lot of companies have come up and done good on that. So, oh wait, I promised somebody. Who was it? Was it? I'm sorry.
One more question.
Oh, one more. Was there a man that wanted to ask a question?
We need to have time.
A couple of the men walked out even, I think when I was talking about the prostate. All right, so one more question. Well, didn't you have your hand up? Because I kept looking at you and I told you to wait. Did you have a question or no? No. Oh, you did. Okay.
What did you eat for lunch?
What did I eat? Oh, okay.
Well, last night for dinner, a sample menu.
I had the product name is corn. It's actually we did kind of like a Thanksgiving deal. I promised my son because we don't eat a lot of corn, C-O-R-N. But then this product is Q-U-O-R-N. But we had creamed corn, green beans sautéed in garlic, and it's like it would be replacing a breast of chicken. It's a corn patty, Q-U-O-R-N, and I made Imus Ranch barbecue sauce, but that was yesterday, but then I had that for lunch today. The corn cutlet, and it's made from microprotein, and the microprotein comes from mushrooms. So again, it shows you how creative you can be. It wasn't soy, it wasn't tofu. I mean, I eat some tofu, but frankly, I don't eat a lot of tofu. I don't like it. I mean, it's like the texture, and it's like I'll do a tofu salad, like an egg salad. There's a really yummy And actually, my son and my husband don't even know it's not the egg. I mean, so there's some things you can do with that, and they like it. But it's a microprotein, and there's some egg white in this product. And they make like a little cutlet chopped up, or you can just buy the breast. And I bread it myself, and then we have the Imus Ranch barbecue sauce, which is so good. That's in my cookbook, though, the Imus Ranch Cooking for Kids and Cowboys. And I have some recipes in all the book, but I don't think I put the barbecue sauce in that one. And the cream corn, we don't eat a lot of corn, but my son had been bugging me for creamed corn. I guess he'd been hearing about it, like kids eating creamed corn. So I said I'd do it. So I did it with organic corn. It's out of season, so I had to buy frozen organic corn. But I made it with Earth Balanced butter. It's a vegetarian. Do you guys know it? You're shaking your heads. Isn't it good? In fact, that was the butter. I was on The View and I was making these biscuits and buttering them, and they couldn't believe that it wasn't butter, like, the because it's so good. So it's good for people to know that have to get, that want to get out of those habits of the animal fat, because it's really important. So I mixed that in with organic soy milk, and it came out great. And then just the organic green beans sauteed with garlic. So that's what I had for lunch. And then I had a soy chai tea. I had 2 of those, actually, one in the morning, and I had one on my way here. Is that it? Well, thank you very much.